Season 28 not only makes Gibby great again, it also fundamentally changes how he plays with a new momentum boost, insane upgrades, and multiple upgrade paths that opens up different playstyle. So in this guide, I'm going through all of his new changes, how to get the most out of them, and the tricks and tips that Respawn doesn't tell you in the patch notes. First, Gibraltar now has momentum boost. This gives Gibby a speed boost after remaining at sprint speed for 3 seconds, and this part is important because sprint speed does not mean it only works while you're actively sprinting, unlike something like Rampart's amp boost. If you properly conserve your momentum while turning, you can actually keep that speed boost while doing movement tech, which makes Gibby feel way more mobile than before, and this is especially important because it works insanely well with his other passive, Fortified. Fortified makes Gibby take 15% less damage from all source, and it also means he doesn't get slowed by bullets. Before this update, one of Gibby's biggest weakness is that his massive hitbox makes him really easy to beam while rotating, but now, because he can rotate quicker with a momentum boost, and because Fortified stops bullets slow, he's much harder to punish in the open than he used to be. His other passive is still the Gunshield. Wherever Gibby ADS, he gets a 50 HP Gunshield, which is huge for taking direct challenges and burning enemy resource. A simple tip here, don't forget the ADS when appropriate, because enemies often aim at your body inside the chaos of the fight. That extra 50 HP can absolutely clutch up in a fight. And against Hardlight, Gibraltar now also deals double melee damage, which gives him even more value in close range fights, especially inside buildings. Gunshield now has a 13-second cooldown instead of 17, and it lasts for 12 seconds. It still gives you that invincible half spear or protection against bullets and explosive, which makes it amazing for resets, revive, reposition, and hard pushes, but is still weak to things like Crypto EMP and Mad Maggie's ultimate, so keep that in mind. One small but very important interaction is that the dome actually goes through walls and floors. This means if you're pushing enemies above you in certain buildings, you can throw the dome onto the floor and create a protected crouch space through the ceiling. That can give you room to heal, reposition, or bait up enemy ammo in spots where you normally wouldn't have cover. Another really important thing to remember is that just because your POV shows that you're inside a bubble, that does not always mean your character model is fully inside it. So when you're bubble fighting, be very aware of your positioning, because sometimes you think you're safe, but part of your body is still exposed. Now onto his ultimate. Gibby's ult got multiple buffs this season. The missile drops faster, the equip time is quicker, and the radius is 20% larger, which makes the ult much easier to land and much harder for enemies to dodge. This makes the ultimate much better for punishing weak teams, forcing enemy off their current position, and creating pressure when they don't have roof cover. If a team is low, healing, or stuck in a bad position, Gibby's ult is now much better at forcing them into a bad decision. Now let's go through his new upgrades, because this is where Gibraltar really branches into different playstyle. The first blue upgrade is Thunderdome. This electrifies the dome and stuns the first enemy who enters it. That makes enemies hesitate to push into your bubble, and it can put them at a huge disadvantage in a clutch situation. For example, I had to clutch a 1v2 after my team traded with one of the enemies. The enemy Octane saw me sliding away and decides to chase me into my bubble, but because of Thunderdome, he got stunned and slid straight into his own demise. I then fake res my teammate to bait the Bangalore, make him panic and rush me, which let me clutch the 1v2 and win the fight. And there's also a really useful trick with Thunderdome. Since it only stuns enemy when they enter the dome, you can actually bypass the stun by overlapping your team's dome with the enemy's Thunderdome. Because once you're already inside Gibby dome, walking through the intersection into the enemy dome does not trigger the stun. The important part is that this only works if you pass through the intersection between your dome and their dome first, then move into their dome. Just overlapping the domes by itself does not cancel the Thunderdome stun. In this fight, the enemy Gibby is trying to reset after they have one knocked. He dropped a Thunderdome, so I placed my own Gibby dome to intersect with his, ran through the overlap without getting stunned, and killed him inside his own bubble. The other blue upgrade is Dome Healing. This increases the dome duration by 4 seconds and doubles the healing of small meds as long as you finish the heal inside the dome. This is really strong when your team is low on heals or trying to recover from bad loot early in the game. It's also great when your comp wants more reliable reliable resets and longer hold potential, especially when you need extra dome duration to play around limited cover. So between Thunderdome and Dome Healing, which one should you pick? Go Thunderdome if you want a more aggressive playstyle, or if your team comp wants to actively fight and punish pushes. Go Dome Healing if your team needs longer reset windows, needs to hold position with poor cover, or struggles to stabilize early due to weak loot. Next is Triple Bombardment. At first glance, this sounds like a bad upgrade because it massively shrinks the overall ult area and lowers the number of missile per core, but in reality, it's actually a huge upgrade because the blast radius of each missile doesn't shrink. So instead of one large but spread out bombardment, you now get a much condensed ult, which makes enemies inside the area far more likely to get hit and downed. And the real power is that you now have 3 charges. Before, abilities like Gibby Bubble or Horizon's Tactical could completely deny your one ult. Now, you can use one Gibby ult to force up their defensive abilities, then wait for those cooldowns to expire and use your second ult to finish them off. That makes Gibraltar's ult much stronger in draw fights or in-game situations. For example, in this fight, I'm trying to wipe the squad on the same low ground as us. The enemy team has Horizon left, Gibby Dome, and Lifeline Halo to deny my ult, but because their Horizon has already used her tactical early, I decide to use my first ult just to force out their defensive abilities, which ends up baiting both the Gibby Dome and Lifeline's Halo. At that point, all I had to do is wait for those abilities to expire and throw my second ult to completely finish them off. And because the ultimate now has 3 charges, it's a really good idea to keep multiple ultimate accelerants in your backpack since each one recharges one ultimate charge. That gives Gibby even more pressure and consistency over the course of a match. The other purple upgrade is Fast Shotties. This lets Gibby move faster while equipping a shotgun similar to Maggie's shotgun passive, and it also gives you auto reload or knocks. This pairs insanely well with momentum boost. If you can preserve your momentum well, you can use this to quickly push enemies with a shotgun and create some really nasty strafe patterns in close range fight. This can make Gibby way harder to track than people expect. For a legend with his size, this is a massive deal. In terms of overall playstyle, Gibraltar has changed a lot. He's no longer just that slow, defensive anchor that mainly shines in final rings. Because of the lower bubble cooldown, the more lethal ult, and the extra mobility from momentum boost, Gibby can now take way more aggressive fights, travel faster, and hold positions that were previously unrealistic for him. For example, I had an endgame with 6 teams left and there were almost no cover on the ring. Since a lot of the teams were playing from the building, I called an evac and took an aggressive fight by using my bubble to give my team cover as soon as we landed. Then I used my Gibby ult to force the enemies away, wiped them, and took their position. After that, we rushed to the middle of the ring, which is basically the only real cover left, and forced our position there by constantly using my bubble for reset and take multiple fights back to back. That would have been much harder with Gibby because of the longer bubble cooldown, and in the end, we won the game. That perfectly shows how Gibraltar has evolved. He's no longer just a slow endgame specialist, he is now a much more aggressive legend that can actually keep up with the pace of the current meta while still keeping all the things that made him strong in the first place. So overall, Season 28 Split 2 doesn't just buff Gibraltar, it also completely changes what he can do. Momentum Boost fixes one of his biggest weaknesses, the new Dome upgrades give him real playstyle branches, and the auto upgrade makes him much better at forcing fight and controlling space. If you play him right, Gibby is no longer just a defensive safety pick, he can be an aggressive powerhouse that constantly pressures team, takes space, and survive way more than he should have. But let me know in the comments whether Gibby is actually good after the upgrade or if he's just being overhyped. And if you find this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more Apex updates and guides. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video.